when you immerse yourself in a competitive community so much, you kind of forget like the average baseline for society as a whole. Like you're
Yeah,
probably, if you walk into a grocery store, you're probably the best Tetris player there. Like
yeah,
you're probably the best Street Fighter player there, whatever.
yeah.
In that entire room, right? And obviously, if
Right.
that room is a tournament, then maybe not. Hello, hello.
Welcome to the Absolute Card Podcast, Episode 4, the podcast where we chronicle the past and the present of the fighting game community and bring on various perspectives from Arizona. You can find us on twitch.tv/Spiral Series, on YouTube at youtube.com/Spiral Series, and on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify under Absolute Guard. To all of you that have been watching and listening, tweeting and retweeting, liking and subscribing, just want to say that we appreciate you and we welcome any feedback that you may have. My name is Benny. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host who lost to the eventual Evo Street Fighter V champion, Kawano, Jon. How you doing today, Jon?
Pretty good. That's a good way to introduce someone, is to highlight their loss. Hey, check this guy out. He got fucked up.
It's all your fault, Jon.
Best known for getting fucked up on stage, right?
Hey man, it's just like that's a crazy thing, man. It's just like
yeah, I can say that, like, yeah, the reason I'm the reason why Kawano won. I'm part of the reasons. Oh man, very cool, very cool. How was your week, man?
It's been going good. It's been going good. I tried to tune into whatever I could with Evo. Just listening to the chats, the comments, the tweets, whatever from all my friends, my Alaska friends, you guys that were there since I couldn't be there. So yeah. I always thought that was pretty cool because, like, I remember my first Evo, I lost to Chris G, and then I was just like, in Mortal Kombat, and I was like, hey, I lost to the guy that got 5th place. So, like, you can be like, I lost to the guy that won. So it's just like,
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, and as we mentioned, I was at Evo this past weekend rather, and kind of doing both a Las Vegas trip with my friends and family, and a fighting game championship, and kind of meshed in with that. And it was an interesting time, and I've got lots of stories to tell today.
Nice. Yeah, so today we're doing a mini episode. You want to give a little bit of explanation behind that?
Totally, yeah. So we've been kind of calling this a mini episode, or a drinks episode, behind the scenes here. And this episode, as you can see, there's only two of us. It's kind of a more casual setting where it's just Benny and I shooting the breeze, and not thinking about doing interviews or anything like that. So the topics are kind of meander, and I'm going to be aided by my Voodoo Ranger IPA. I got some.
I may have beer later. I got water today.
Nice. Go ahead and open it right now.
Nice.
Make sure I don't spill it everywhere.
Yeah, that'll be the thing. Yeah, so yeah, like you said, like, you went to Evo. That's what we were going to talk about today. Basically, your experience there.
Mm-hmm. And you went somewhere too, right?
Yeah, I went to GameOn Expo, which was here in Arizona, for my own little thing. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that too. I actually played some fighting games over there, kind of impromptu, but
very cool. So yeah, basically you held down the fort here in Arizona for the Absolute Guard, right?
I tried to.
Very cool. Why don't we start there? What is GameOn Expo?
So GameOn Expo, I think it started in 2013 is what I was looking at recently. But basically, it's a anime, like, gaming convention here that they have in Arizona. It's held at the Phoenix Convention Center. I first heard about it 3 years ago, because I've been involved in the classic Tetris scene, and they do a qualifier here. They call it the Desert Qualifier, fittingly. And 3 years ago, I wanted to go. Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago. I wanted to go, and I was just like, but I didn't necessarily want to pay for a pass at the time. So I was just like, well, let me volunteer. So
So sorry, real quick. There's
volunteer.
a the competitive Tetris scene is like that you guys play on specific systems, or is like a specific version for Tetris.
Yeah, so we're actually playing the original version of Tetris on the NES. So
Very
it's the
cool.
classic CTWC Classic Tetris World Championships
Oh,
qualifier for
okay.
Desert. So that's what I was doing there. Yeah, I got started with that a few years ago. Played in that. That was like my first time doing that. And then obviously with COVID and the pandemic, things kind of were set aside.
Yeah.
Found out that they were coming back, and I was like, "Well, you guys doing a qualifier here again?" Sure enough, I'm in their Discord for the CTWC, and they were like, "Yeah, we're going to do this in Phoenix on Saturday." And so again, I decided I couldn't volunteer because of work purposes, but all three of my kids actually volunteered. They were helping with the registration, and then one of my daughters was doing being a guest liaison for one of the speakers there, one of the guests there. She had a lot
Hmm.
of fun doing that. So
Wow, that's super cool. So
yeah, there's
what
a
are
lot
you
of people.
qualifying for when you play in a qualifier? Like, what's the prize or
So to
whatever?
be honest, I'm not exactly sure like what's fully entailed in the prize. I don't know if it's a guaranteed spot in the actual CTWC that's later this year.
Okay.
I don't think it involves any kind of like airfare or anything like that. I don't think they're like budgeted for that kind of thing. But I think it guarantees you a possible spot there.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Like seating in a tournament bracket, basically.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'd
Cool.
have to know for sure. I mean, there's a lot of great players that were here, so I was
Oh,
just
really?
hoping to kind of do my best. So I
Very.
honestly did not do great.
Does it so like was it is it double elimination or is it single elimination?
Well, no, actually, so to start, there's a qualifier. So
Oh.
it went on from 10 o'clock to 2 p.m. So, basically, during that time period, they have anywhere I don't know 8 to 10 stations set up, and you play. You get whatever high score you can get, and then if your scores, if you want to post your score, you want to record your score, you let the person that was the judge there or whatever there
Hmm.
know, and then they put you in a leaderboard, and then you go back to the end of the line. Everybody goes through that multiple times, and then at the end of the cutoff time, um, they were basically taking the top 16 scores, and then they were seeding those guys into a uh, single elimination bracket, just seeded like
Ah.
116, 215, stuff like that. So
So you're qualifying based on score first before you actually go head to head against anybody.
correct, yeah,
Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, like I said, I didn't do anywhere near as well as I wanted to. Just had a bad day, but it happens. So I was a little salty about that. So as a
Wow.
result of that, I decided like, I had it already kind of planned out. I was like, if I do well and I'm in the bracket, right, that's the rest of my day is I'm gonna play in the bracket. But when I didn't do that, I was like, well, if that doesn't work out, I'm gonna go find these whatever tournaments, fighting game tournaments, and I'm gonna go play in those and beat up on some people here and there, whatever.
Okay, that makes sense. So the I guess so. How many people ended up entering that qualifier? Out of curiosity.
I'd have to look at the sheet. I want to say there was maybe 40 people,
Wow.
maybe more, because there was a lot. Like initially, it was like a lot of the hardcore people that were there that knew about it, and then like as the went on, like you would see random people just kind of walk up and, hey, what's this? What do I
Hmm.
got to do? And like they'd learn about the guidelines, like you got to start on level 9, just get to your high score and then let somebody know, and then that'll be it, and you can come back if you want to post another score or whatever.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like Tetris is probably one of the most universal games out there, and so I bet a lot of people walked in off the floor being like, "Yeah, I played Tetris. That sounds awesome."
exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's one of those things, just like the fighting games. People look at it and they kind of have like a general idea of how to play, and it's just like, but do you really know how to play?
Yeah, I
So
think I mentioned this to you on the side earlier, but it was like, um, you know, we when you immerse yourself in a competitive community so much, you kind of forget like the average baseline for society as a whole. Like you're
yeah,
probably if you walk into a grocery store, you're probably the best Tetris player there. Like
yeah,
you're probably the best Street Fighter player there, whatever.
yeah,
In that entire room, right? And obviously, if
yeah,
that room is a tournament, then maybe not.
yeah,
But I think we underestimate just how many people like can play these games but don't. You know?
Yeah.
For,
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I forgot his name. I feel bad that I forgot his name, but standing in line, there was a guy that was playing, and he was kind of just basically brand new. Like he didn't know about this at all. He just kind of heard about it, and he's actually from Chandler too.
oh,
And
cool.
he actually qualified for that top 16. And I was talking to him. I guess he's only playing on like emulator on his PC with an Xbox controller, so he doesn't even have like an NES. And he posted a good enough score to qualify, and I'm just like, wow, dude, this is like, this is pretty damn good. Like, if this is your first time coming here and, actually playing on this system and, posting scores like that, like, that's pretty damn good. So
Nice.
that was, like you said, there's people out there that, maybe don't know about the competitive scenes for the various games or just don't want to be involved for various reasons. And, and that's fine. But, it's always nice to kind of like run into people and just like, oh, you play this. And then,
Yeah.
who knows? I'll probably run into that guy again, somewhere down the line or it happens all the time in the FGC.
Yeah, in my past history as a tournament organizer in Arizona, like con tournaments, they'd always be a good way to reach new members of the community or create new members of the community essentially because people don't, they're there for Comic Con or something, they don't know the competitive scene exists like you said, and then they just
Yeah,
had a reputation of like coming back, they got a good taste of the tournament. So like we're actually having a guest on in a couple of weeks, Frank Castle, who
yeah,
will who ran those tournaments and was often the gateway to the FGC for Arizona.
yeah. For a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah, it's a plug for a future episode.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. It's just like, yeah, um, the con experience. The more serious players, it's not something that people planned for, right? It's like if you're there, yeah, I'll play in it if I have time, and it's one of those kind of situations. It's
Yeah.
like, especially here. I mean, in Alaska, it was a little different when I was there because like our scene was so small that actually one of our biggest tournaments was at this place called SenchiCon that they would do in like September or August, and like all the major players, would be like, hey, are you guys going here? And that would be like one of our biggest tournaments because like it's a smaller city in Anchorage. So, a lot of people would go there because it was like, hey, we need something to do. Hey,
Hmm.
let's go do a tournament also. So here, not so much. Yeah. Like, I only ran into one person I knew, which was Ernest. So, it's definitely not a super competitive thing in that nature, but yeah, it's definitely a way to get introduced to new people or to find people that are, been the best person in their neighborhood or their friend circle and, come out and been like, hey, I'm going to this thing and I found out that they're having a tournament.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So see, you entered a Street Fighter Five bracket then as well.
Yeah, so after Tetris, I entered Tekken 7 with Set Gaming.
Oh,
Honestly, I
Tekken
don't know
7.
why. Yeah, I just did that just more out of support for him because like he's been running Smash events and
Yeah.
FGC stuff even for years, and I chatted up with him a bit, and I was like, hey, just throw me in the bracket. Like I didn't have any expectations for that. I was like, whatever. I haven't played Tekken in years, but I just want to play.
Sure.
So yeah, I didn't do well in that. I think I won one match, but yeah, then I went to the Gaming Zone booth because I knew about that one. They had a Street Fighter Five tournament, and then while I was, they were setting up, and I was just watching somebody. Ernest, who's from Tucson, walked up to me and was, just kind of caught me by surprise, and he was helping his girlfriend with a artist vendor station. So that was pretty cool because I didn't know that he was involved in doing any of that. So
Ernest being Crazy EX from Tucson, one of the
yeah,
well-known
Crazy
players.
EX, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the top players from in our whole scene. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, we're both kind of out of practice,
Ha-
but go ahead.
did you guys end up meeting each other in grand finals?
No, not grand finals. He actually took me out on the way because I went into losers like right off the bat,
Oh.
uh, losing to a Zeku player. Like, um, part of it was I didn't have my button set, but that's on me because I didn't have like I usually have like the triple punch and kicks set up for my teleports, and I didn't have those
Ah.
set up. And that was on me because we did a button check, and I was just like, "Yeah, everything's good." And then I found out mid game, I was just like, "Oh man!" But
That's like
credit to
the.
the
I have a story about that later regarding Evo, but that seems like it's a pandemic problem where we forgot how to do button checks, right?
yeah,
over
yeah,
over doing just after having been locked in our rooms for playing on PC or whatever for the past 2 years.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want to take credit from the guy that beat me. I mean, that was all fair and square. Like he even knew about like I tried to hit him with the yoga sniper, the jumping jab by Dalsim, and he blocked that. So I was like, when I lost that first match by that, I was like, oh, he knows, he
Yeah,
knows at least
that's
some
cool.
basic stuff. So
Yeah.
so credit to him to put me in losers, and then I made my way through losers. Eventually to I guess that would have been the fourth place match, and that's where me and Ernest met up. And yeah, he got put in the losers early too. So he took me out in fourth place, and then he ended up getting second, I think.
Oh, really? Somebody else
Yeah,
won. Who won?
yeah. So one of the con players that was there, he was playing Nikali. Ended up winning. He knew
Nice.
some stuff. He knew some basic stuff. I played him in casuals. He was playing Karen at the time, and I think he ran off like 4 or 5 wins to start, and then I ran off like 3 or 4 wins right before we started, and ended it with like a perfect. So um, it's funny. I think Alejandro, one of the Gaming Zone brothers, he was like, "Oh man, you should have seen the people back here because they were just like kind of taken aback because they saw you get that perfect, and they're like, oh man." So it's just like, maybe I put some people on notice, but then like, when I lose my first match, I'm just like, well, there goes that.
The competition is that fierce, Benny.
But it
That's
was it
tight.
was fun times. I had fun.
How big was
And
the
then
bracket?
actually I'm not sure. I'd say probably less than maybe 16. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to look at the bracket. I was just like,
16 is pretty good for
yeah.
Street Fighter 5 in Arizona, so that's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I ended up getting Ernest ended up giving me one of his prizes, one of the controllers that he got, the N64 controller, because when we went to go stop by at his girlfriend's booth, and then he was like, "Hey, do you have an N64?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "Yeah, because I don't have one. So if you want this," I was like, "Sure." I was like, "So I got something out of it, so it was
Yeah.
cool."
FGC looking out for each other.
Yeah, so it was fun times. Yeah, overall the con was pretty cool. My kids had fun. Um, So, definitely do that again. I think they're looking forward to probably volunteering again at some other events now that they have, more experience under their belt. So,
Wow.
uh, overall good times.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, so you also went to, well, not, I don't know if you want to call it a convention, but
Kind of is. It kind of is now.
it
It really
kind of
is.
is that. Yeah, so you went to Evo this past weekend,
Hmm.
Evo 2022 at in Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's been what, 3 years since the last Evo, well, offline Evo, right?
Yeah. This will be the third year. Or yeah, it was canceled in 2020 and it was online in
Yeah.
2021, and so this is our year back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I mean, yeah, I mean, even like we talked in our last episode with Sean and Will Get Paid. That we've been to previous Evos. So how was your experience with this one?
Compared to
Compared
the
to the
old
ones
ones.
compared to the ones in the
Mm.
past.
This one. So there's like two eras of Evo for me, right? Where basically when they switched, they went from hotel ballroom to convention center.
Yeah.
So hotel ballroom, everything up to that was like grassroots, and then once they went convention center, that's when it started feeling like a con, like a convention, like a true convention.
Yeah.
And so this was very much still in the convention vein. It wasn't a combo breaker per se, which is more grassroots, but they fine tuned a lot of what went wrong in 2019. Frankly, they had 2 years to figure that out, right? Or 3 years
Yeah.
to figure that out. Um, Examples of that were like, people like as the event grew over the years, right? They added more and more games to it, and so it became harder and harder to support multiple casual setups because you're like, hey, I gotta use the space for another tournament for a different game.
Yeah.
I gotta move on, and so like it one of the largest criticisms of Evo for a long time was casuals or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And for a tournament that bills itself as the World Championships, where you get a chance to play people from around the world, it's kind of hard to do that unless there's casual setups or unless you have the hookup via social media, go to salty suites and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So this time they actually had a dedicated casuals area, and I thought it was fine. I thought it wasn't like Combo Breaker is well known for its 24-hour venue, and you can just
Yeah.
play casuals for whatever. But I had a good time with the casual setups, and so they like there was always a setup for people playing on. Some of the tournament setups were used for casuals too, just like the old days. It was a good time. Um,
Nice.
yeah, and then the other issue that everyone was addressing was water. Water
Yeah.
sucks, or like lack thereof. was really hard to find water in the venue. And as the convention center grew over the years, right, or the space for the event grew, you
Yeah.
know, you keep the water at the edges of at the edges of the convention
The
center,
convention.
so that way you're not wheeling a bunch of water around a bunch of electronics, right?
Yeah.
So as the convention center grew, that means the trip to the water to get water grew as
Yeah.
well. So they addressed that by like just making sure there were more water stations and that we all got specialty water bottles. Because the other thing is, I spent $8 on a water bottle at
Yeah.
at the hotel.
That's
It's really
that's Vegas for
expensive.
you. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Vegas for you. Don't open
yeah,
that mini fridge in in your room.
yeah,
Yeah, that's cool. I remember. Yeah, I saw the pictures of the water bottle, so that's awesome. And then you posted a picture. You know, I'd seen other people post pictures too about the water stations that they had lined up against the wall, which is pretty cool. So it's glad that I mean, it's a big thing too. I mean, especially I mean, granted you guys aren't outside, but it is Vegas in the middle of summer. It's hot. It's hot like it is here. So definitely a big thing to concern yourself about and make sure that you're hydrated for your tournament matches.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so let me see. You mentioned the 24-hour venue. I think I saw something on Twitter that that's something that they eventually want to do. I mean, I don't know what kind of hurdles that they have in terms of that with Vegas or security, because I mean, the bigger the space, you got all those cabs, those consoles, monitors, everything just kind of sitting around. Like, that's a whole nother thing to deal with.
Yeah, I like a lot of the criticisms that I see of this year's Evo, outside of like, so there's a whole degree of criticisms I see on Twitter about the stream, and I obviously wasn't watching the stream, I was there. Um,
Yeah,
but the main criticism I see outside of for people who were there were that they wanted the convention center to be open a third day. um,
yeah,
because and to me that's less so that's the solution and not necessarily the problem. The problem is that people didn't get to do everything that they wanted to do. They wanted
yeah,
more time to do it, right? And
exactly.
so how do you solve that is there's a bunch of different ways you can solve that, but the 24-hour venue would be a solve for that. The opening it up on the
Yeah,
third day would be a solve for that. But all those come with
yeah,
those additional concerns. Like, yeah, if you keep a 24-hour venue open, Vegas seems like it would be the place to do it. But like
yeah.
logistically, is it actually sound to do that? And like what are the costs for Mandalay Bay to allow that? Or are there any laws that Nevada or Las Vegas has? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you think about that's one solution is the 24-hour venue. I mean, with
Hmm.
adding another day, but then that's a whole nother thing. Like then you have a
Yeah.
fourth day, like,
Yeah,
so
because
then
they
that
need a day to break everything down, right? And to
exactly, yeah,
tear down
to
all the
set
yeah.
up, yeah, to
Yep.
do all the setup, those kind of things. Like I definitely understand like the lack of time because I mean, especially if you're playing, even if you're playing just two games, I mean, the time that you've got to allot for your pools and then like,
Yeah.
you know, you want to take a break whether, mentally, physically before you got to play again if you get out of pools, if you're playing multiple games, like I know a lot of people that they're going to Evo. Hey, I paid whatever for my registration fee. What's another $10 to play another game, with
Yeah.
everybody here? And it's just like, you spread yourself super thin, and then it's just like, yeah, you don't have time to do other stuff.
E-
Even the vendors, like the lines for that stuff, like, yeah,
Even from a business perspective, it's like, you know, say we did get the Evo team did give them unlimited time, right? Or the FGC
Mhm.
had unlimited time to enjoy Evo. If I came back to you and I said, "Yeah, I did everything that I wanted to," do you think I'd be
Yeah,
inclined to try to go back again?
no, yeah,
Like that's also a good reason to keep people coming back. Is like, yeah, there's a lot jam packed in this weekend, and we're going to continue to offer you that much, and then just
yeah,
explore it as much as you can and come back. You
yeah,
know?
yeah, maybe, yeah, because it's one of those things too. Like, I mean, you go like I go take road trips all the time with my family, and like we go someplace, and it's just like, man, we didn't have a lot of time to do this. And
Hmm.
then what does it do? It's just like, hey, when can we go back and we'll plan better, and we'll prioritize, this and this ride or whatever, and because we did this last time, so it's just like, yeah, from a business standpoint, like I understand that completely too. Like, yeah,
A huge thing I noticed was every year on finals day, they
mm.
always have a gentleman speak. I forget his name, but he's a big bald dude, and he gives out the awards and stuff like that. You probably saw him on the stream. Every
Oh,
year,
that's Chris Lee.
Chris Lee, yeah, it's Chris Lee. Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you,
Chris Lee.
Chris. He's awesome. He's so cool. He's a brilliant public speaker, and I've seen him give out Canon awards. I've seen him run the award ceremonies. I've seen him announce the games and stuff like that before they had those video trailers and stuff. But every year he also asks, like, who here it's their first time ever at Evo.
Yeah.
And one thing that I noticed in the arena this year was that like I want to say 2/3 of the arena, at least 2/3 of the arena all raised their hands.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and there's a lot of different conclusions you can draw from that, because like if I also talk to like the if I from my FGC perspective, the Arizona scene, like
Yeah.
seeing like pretty much I think it was just four of us that were actually at finals day. I don't think a
Okay.
lot of like the players are there. I think a lot of spectators are there instead. And so it's kind of interesting seeing that shift where the spectators, or finals day is more about the spectators, but along the like while finals were going on, like for Guilty
Yeah.
Gear, for KOF or something, there were Street Fighter streams of Salty Sweets going on too. So it's
Yeah.
almost like the players now go do something else. I haven't seen as many players at finals over the past couple of years. Like it's been dropping,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
spectators seem to be more taken over. Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting. Yeah, that's. I mean, I did notice that too. Like the level up stream was up, and
Yeah.
yeah, some other salty sweets. Because I mean, again, it goes back to that time constraint, and it's just like you're spreading yourself thin. Like, do you want to be in the arena?
Yep.
Granted, I think if you have maybe friends in the top eight, you might be more inclined to go do that.
Yep.
Um, there's the cost factor too, because that's a separate ticket. I don't know what was that going for this year. I think I heard somebody say like $100 or something like that.
Yeah, we ended up paying. Yeah, so we had a snafu with my fiance's ticket, and like she purchased it back in April, and then it just
Yeah.
didn't show up in the app, so we had to buy her one at the front desk, and that
Oh
ended
wow.
up being like $100, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's crazy that you kind of mentioned that whole like it's more spectator based, because what I think of in terms
Yeah.
of that is like the whole when it comes to like football, because I'm a big football fan. Uh, and I just think about the Super Bowl, because like leading up to the Super Bowl, it's fans, 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 and then you get to the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is so expensive. It's not for the casual fan. It's for like the corporate businesses and the
Oh.
sponsors and stuff like that. And like there are fans that go. Like I personally, I only know one person that has gone. It's like one of my cousins who her dad like works in the government, so they're pretty well off. And like that's the only person that I've known that's gone to the Super Bowl personally. I know people that have gone to the city and like hung around and wanted to be in the environment, but they're not actually in the stadium because the tickets are so outrageously priced. And it's just like it's not the casual fan, like your everyday fan that's going there.
It's a
It's
stark difference than like GameOn Expo, where it's like people can have the ability to walk in off the floor, right?
Exactly,
Um,
yeah. So it's just like,
yeah.
yeah, it's a completely different vibe, just like you said. So it's just like if 2/3 of the people in there
Yeah.
are like first time Evo goers, I mean, yeah, there's probably a mix of new players to the scene or people that couldn't go in years past that are finally going for the first time. But I mean, with that percentage of people, like I'd have to imagine that there's a lot of people that are just, maybe in Vegas and hearing about it and just saying, "Hey, there's this big, huge tournament going on here. You guys want to go check this out as a thing to do in Vegas, and not just like, I'm part of Evo kind of thing."
And it used to be like that, where we'd have Evo was free to spectate for a long time while we were in the hotel ballrooms.
Hmm.
And I say we as just we as the royal
Yeah,
we for the fighting game community, but because it
yeah,
feels like that Evo is so ingrained in uh, the fighting game community's DNA at this point.
yeah,
But yeah, like I would remember at old Evos, I would go and I would just be sitting and watching probably quarterfinals or semifinals, like top
hmm,
32 or so. And there would always like everybody would be seated and watching and or playing games, one of the two, but they'd be seated, and then you'd see a bunch of people standing near the doors. And it's always that's just people that would be there at the hotel for a different reason. Like this is like
yeah,
at the Rio or at Caesars or at um was it the Las Vegas hotel, the Westgate?
yeah.
that
The
one,
Westgate, yeah.
oh man, Westgate was that was okay. And yeah, so people would be like standing there, and you could tell they just wandered in off the floor. They didn't have a badge or anything. Yeah, I remember. I don't think we even had badges in 2010. I can't remember. That
Yeah, I
was my
don't.
first one.
Yeah,
So
I don't think we had. Yeah, I don't remember any in 2011 either. So
wow.
I think that started. I want to say that started in 2016.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, probably when the convention center happened, right?
Yeah,
That was yeah. I think the convention center was the first year of Street Fighter Five, which would be 2016.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's 2016. Yeah, because that's the one where I remember like everybody was kind of staying off site because there's no hotel attached to that convention center, and
yeah.
that's where I ended up staying like across the street at this like it's like a little house rental kind of thing or a little two-story thing, which is pretty cool.
Nice. That sounds like
Yeah,
yeah. Like my choice is always to stay at the venue if I can.
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
I when I was earlier on, I tried a couple different things. Like I stayed at a house in Henderson one year,
Oh, that's kind
and
of far off.
yeah, it was far off. It sucked. Yeah. So like, I had my friend who was staying with me had an 8 a.m. pool, and it's like, okay, well, time to get up at 6 because
Yep.
you have to budget the time to drive over there, but then you also have to budget the time to actually walk from the parking garage to the lobby or the
Yep.
hotel, or rather the hotel ballroom rather.
Yeah.
And so it's just now like Mandalay Bay is already a long enough walk. We were thinking about that. I think it probably was like a mile or something, walking from the room to the convention center. And then there was one year where it was like, it was technically at Paris, but in reality it was at the Bally's Convention Center.
Yeah.
And so we all stayed at Paris thinking, well, yeah, let's stay next to the venue. And we ended up walking from one hotel to another.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I've learned over the years too, because it's just like, yeah, we've tried staying off site just because for various reasons in different years. And then like when, even just that little drive, like driving from one little spot to another is like, if somebody was getting tired and they wanted to go sleep, like you had to go
All
walk
the way
all the way
back.
back to the walk
All
all
the
the way
way
back to
back.
the
Yeah.
car, drive, and then it's just like, when are you coming back? Like you got to try to sort all that stuff out. Whereas if you're in the
And,
venue, it's just like, hey, I'm gonna go upstairs.
and it's not as simple as like I'm just gonna walk that far. It's like I'm gonna walk that far, but I'm carrying an arcade stick and I'm carrying the water bottles that we have to keep us hydrated during the walk. Like it's pretty heavy. And then from there, you're at the convention center for God knows how long. And then my feet were killing me by the end of the weekend, or honestly by the end of the first day.
Yeah,
Oh man. But
yeah,
yeah, like, and then a lot of this I think comes back to like I can tell you stay at the venue, right? I can say stay at the
yeah.
venue. It's way better. Frankly, I think that staying at the Delano might actually be the secret tech because I think the Delano is actually closer to the
To the
Mandalay Bay
convention
Convention
center.
Center than the actual
Oh,
hotel. Yeah. But we get into a conversation about pricing people out and going back to the Super Bowl analogy, right? Where
yeah,
like Mandalay Bay is not a cheap hotel, so I know a lot of folks
yeah.
stayed at Luxor and Excalibur and stuff, so that way
Excalibur.
they
Yeah,
could they could take the monorail over, but that adds that trip, and it's kind of like I don't know, arena finals and the cost of the hotel and whatnot. Like it, I do, and now on top of like all like the high refresh monitor stuff, which I don't even want to touch on that one on this mini one, but like I'm worried a lot lately about this becoming a rich man's game,
yeah,
and pricing out good like really good players that can't play because they can't afford to or because it's too expensive to compete. And that's one of the one of my big one of my big reasons for being in the FGC is being able to interact with a bunch of different perspectives from all different walks of life. And so any kind
yeah,
of limiter on the FGC really kind of rubs me the wrong way.
yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's something that you definitely gotta plan and budget for. Yeah, go fund yourself, as
Yeah.
I used to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not cheap. And like I said, like you register for Evo, and then it's just like you want to play all these games, time constraints.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to buy stuff at vendors, you got to budget for food, all that stuff.
Oh
If you're
yeah.
in
By the way,
Vegas,
I paid $20 for Johnny Rockets, and it was like shitty In-N-Out burger. It was terrible, dude. And the
yeah,
tech was they give you they like on the little placemats for the lunch trays they give you. There's actually like 50% off coupons, so it would take my $20 burger and turn it back to a $10 burger. Still wasn't even worth $10. Still
yeah.
wasn't worth it. But it was you're a captive audience at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what are you gonna do? I had one friend when at my first Evo, he didn't budget for food. Like he was just there, and I was like, I felt so bad. I ended up buying him food on the side because I was just like, man, you gotta eat too, man. But
Yeah,
it's one of those things. Like if you've never been to Vegas before, like yeah, it's sticker shock. Like you said, $8 water bottles. Like what are you gonna
yeah,
do? Go off site? Okay, let me go to my car and get out of parking and pay
yeah.
for parking again. Yeah, it's a mess. So
I mean, to Evo's credit, like I'm like the water $8 water bottles are really good example of that, where they gave out free water bottles and had water stations, so they found ways to mitigate that a little bit. And I
yeah.
believe that there was a snack bar that was right outside the convention center, and I believe those prices were significantly lower than the food court I went into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it like I don't mean to say that Evo's like these evil corporate overlords and Pokemane's out to get us or anything, but more so that like I think that the realities of playing video games competitively in 2022 and in Las
Yeah.
Vegas and in the current state of our world and world economics and whatnot make this very hard lately.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. It's like, yeah, it's not like I said, it's not cheap at all.
Yeah.
Definitely gotta plan for it. Plan for a lot of stuff too.
If I could talk about my tournament results too, I'd love to kind of embellish about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I mean, like I said from the start, I mean, you did lose, or the
Yeah.
champion on the way did defeat you, but
Yeah.
yeah, if you wanna divulge a little bit about yeah, like how your tournament experience went, because you just entered Street Fighter Five, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Just Street
I,
Fighter.
I've definitely gone to Evos before where I've entered multiple games, and my record is like for like 3 games at once or something. But
Yeah,
it's I always wanted to focus on my favorite game, which is Street Fighter Five, and so I wanted to keep everything on that. And my pool was kind of interesting. It had two big names in it. Kawano was top seed, obviously top seed for arguably the whole tournament. Just some background on Kawano is like I consider him the best player in Japan, and during the pandemic in particular on Street Fighter League and whatnot. For folks who haven't been following Street Fighter Five, like he's been beating Daigo and Tokido and Mago and Dogra and Nemo and all those really strong players very regularly. And he won Evo Japan. He was a killer in Street Fighter League. Like I think he even proclaimed himself the best in Japan at one point, and
oh
it's
wow,
really difficult to actually dispute that. And then what happened is they nerfed his character, and he's still a huge threat and still really strong. And so I knew that going into the match. I met him
yeah,
second round, so he played somebody, I played somebody, and then I ran into him, and it was bad. I like so I was already nervous,
yeah.
but I set my buttons wrong. So that was in the round one. That was really bad, and
Oh wow,
I like called it out, and I like he didn't take the round actually. He just let me set my
oh wow,
buttons, and we re-went because it's also like I get the CPT rules and whatnot. If that was on stream, then that would be much more under scrutiny. But in pool play, no one gives a shit, so it's
yeah.
fine. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
Yeah. So we moved on, but then that same round, even once we figured it out, immediately it goes to the home screen. Someone tries to log in, and the kid next to me who had started his match
oh,
interrupted ours with his PlayStation controller,
gotta
and the kid
desync
looked
those
mortified.
controls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So you gotta be. Can you repeat that real quick, Benny?
yeah. I was gonna say you gotta desync your controllers.
Yeah, because the kid looked mortified. He looked because it looked like it looked like it was his first tournament, which is really common at Evo.
Yeah,
And I hope that I doubt he was listening, but I hope that everybody who ever does that know that that's not your fault.
yeah,
As when you have a PlayStation controller, the way PlayStation 4 is designed is that you can't disconnect your own controller because you have to go through all these different menus and go to
yeah,
disconnect. And who's going to hit the button to hit disconnect if you've disconnected your controller? Like it's just not possible for them to do it. And
yeah,
PlayStation 4's OS didn't code it that way, which is a
yeah,
whole nother thing because PS4 sucks for tournaments for that reason. Um, and
yeah,
so it's actually on the players who get on the station next to go into the menu and desync everything. But Koano and I didn't do that. So
yeah,
at the time I was upset because I'm like, man, I already fucked up once and now this happened
yeah,
and I'm really frazzled. And so the kid I think thought it was his fault, but I was like, no, just let me clean it. So I cleared all the devices out. We went back to it. No, there were no other interruptions in the match, but at that point, like, um, my mind wasn't there. But that's not really why I lost. The real reason why I lost was that guy. That guy can whiff punish anything anybody does, and it's so crazy to watch. Where I played Chun Li, and Chun Li is a poking character, right? And so
Yeah.
when you poke in a Street Fighter, you want to take up as much space as possible, and you want to do it in quick bursts to allow people to keep people from walking into that range, or to
Yeah.
force them into the corner or something like that. But you can only whiff so many times before somebody catches on to your patterns and punishes you for them, whether they're jumping at it or they're teleporting in or they're throwing a fireball to stuff it or they're whiff punishing it. Most importantly, the
Yeah.
whiff punishing thing. And so for me, I actually have a number I count through when I play with people, and you can figure out how attentive they are to hitting buttons. So if I can hit like standing fierce, which the Chun Li button is standing fierce, right? I can hit
Yeah.
that button usually 2 times before somebody catches on. And if I'm really greedy, I can go 3 times. But this
Yeah.
guy, I hit it once, and then I tried to hit it again, and he immediately whiff punished me. I hit him in the face with fierce. He took the hit, and then I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, cool! I'm -1 on hit there, but I'm gonna hit fierce again because it works on most people." And he immediately
Yeah.
counter poked me and killed me off of it.
Oh
So
wow.
like, yeah, Kawano, like he basically made me rethink the game in a lot of ways, because I just get away with a lot more in neutral that nobody,
Yeah.
including I do play a lot of really strong players from the West Coast. Like I'm
Yeah.
not a slouch in the game by any means, and they let me get away with that way more than Kawano did.
Yeah.
Like it was eye opening to see him just pick me apart like that. And he would do stuff like let me get out of the corner for free, but then hit me with crouch fierce to anti-air me, and then be comfortable with putting me back in the corner. Like everything about the way he played like was just extremely conservative, and then punished me. And I don't.
Yeah.
I usually play that way for other people, and that didn't. Like I usually wait for them to kill themselves, and then but he
Yeah.
waited for me to kill myself, and I knew that was happening, and I still like fell into it because he was that good. So I
Yeah.
won 1 round, I think. I think I won 1 round, and then he quick 2-0. Um,
It's like me and
and
Daigo.
yeah, yeah, basically, yeah. It's my buddy's actually he recorded it on his cell phone, and he's flying home today actually, so it'll probably be uploaded to YouTube, and I'll do a
Okay.
stream where I go through each match and whatnot.
Nice. Yeah, because
But
I actually just pulled up the bracket. So,
yeah,
yeah, so it was it was you beat this guy Gradius, then you played Kowanos winners quarterfinal. Like basically, like I guess it's the third round because I guess you guys were both in the second round of the pool already.
yeah. Real quick on
Uh,
Gradius, he played Ken, and I know that match pretty well, and I he had like 1 or 2 tendencies that I just kind of took advantage of ultimately.
okay, nice, nice. And then yeah, so after Kowano, yeah, you were put in the losers, and then you were playing Mythic Bird.
Yeah, Mythic Bird was. I don't remember who he played.
Oh, that's fine.
Uh, yeah, I think that guy. Oh, that was the guy who I forget what character he played, but I don't remember having a ton of issues. Basically, like he couldn't
Okay.
do didn't know how to do basic combos. I think.
Oh, gotcha,
Um,
gotcha. Okay, so there was Mystic Bird, and then yeah, you beat them 2-0. Then it was Xavier was next.
so Xavier, that's kind of the reason why like my mind space is a little taken up mainly by that match and less so the one before it. But that gentleman is a Luke player, but he's from Slovenia, and I had a
Oh
chance to
wow.
play somebody from Slovenia. He was, he knew the Luke combos, but I think ultimately like I know the match pretty well too, so it worked out
Okay.
okay.
And then after Xavier, you played Bucktooth, who's NorCal, right? Is that NorCal?
Yeah, Bucktooth is so he's in Seattle now, and apparently
Okay.
he's been in Seattle for the past 10 years.
Oh wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, he played Lucia V skill too, and so I had seen him. Uh, Actually, let me go back to giving some background on him. Is that he was a NorCal player. I think he was really popular in CVS too, and he played some Street Fighter 4 as well. And I remember like watching him specifically for Ibuki stuff because he played
Yeah.
Ibuki as well. And I shared that as much with him when we talked, as I said, hey, like you were the Ibuki that I practiced and stole all my shit from. And he laughed at me and said, oh, you picked the wrong Ibuki. But he ended up moving to Seattle. And so he was playing on pad. He was playing Lucia. I mentioned that I actually knew like Luke's balls and Saber
Yeah.
and whatnot. And he thought very highly of those players. And
Nice.
Yeah, so I played played against his Lucia, and he was kind of capitalizing on the fact that a lot of people didn't know what V Skill 2 did. And I got lucky because even though the Lucias that I play, well, for one, I actually know the Lucia match probably better than most people because we have three Lucias in our local Arizona scene for Street Fighter
Yeah,
5, and they're all like really strong players. Like there's the best player in Yuma and the best player, two of the best players in Tucson, and arguably in state are over like they're all Lucia players, right?
yeah.
So like um I know the match really well basically, but none of them use V skill too, and so I had to like look on the fly really quickly at my frame data app to be like, what the hell does this thing do? And I still barely know it, but I got through it, and it was a 2-0 if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it was a 2-0. Yep. And then after that, you had to play in the losers. I guess losers finals, loser semifinals is what it says in the bracket
Mhm.
against Silver Charge.
Yeah, so Silver Charge was a Bison player, and yeah, I watched his match leading up to it because I think
Mm,
mine finished before his, and it wasn't like I was really worried because he picked V Trigger. At first I was worried because he played Bison, and I think Bison Chun is 5-5, but I'm really bad at the
mm.
matchup personally. And the last couple of tournaments that I've played in, I've lost to Bison. Um,
Okay.
but he didn't really anti-air me very much. That's the kind of the core of it. And so I he fell into a very like templated Bison pattern, which is like they love the tech throws, they aren't good at anti-airs because they're busy thinking about the next thing. Like the
Yeah.
really good Bison players, I think, know how to stay really far back. I don't want to tear anybody down, but basically,
Yeah.
caught a couple little tells about like what I could get away with, and I kind of rode those to victory. I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the things, man. You find the
Yeah.
chink in the armor for your opponent, and you exploit it until either they figure it out or
Hmm.
a coach comes in and says, "Hey, stop doing
Yeah,
that."
yeah, yeah. They hit you in the back of the head, right?
Yeah, yeah. Stop letting them
That's
get away with
at
that.
that point what was really getting me nervous was my goal was on the line there where like I don't have any illusions that I was gonna win Evo or make
Yeah,
top 8 or even get to top 32 really, but it would have been nice obviously, but
yeah,
um I did want to qualify out of my pool, and
yeah,
my personal goal was because Street Fighter 5 is my favorite fighting game ever.
yeah,
I don't know of a game that has resonated with me more and taught me more about fighting games. And I at Evo every year that I've entered, I've qualified.
nice.
And I missed one year in 2018 or 2017, I forget which one, because for a medical issue. And so, but other than that, I've been at every Evo for Street Fighter 5 and seen the finals for every Street Fighter 5, and I've qualified out. And most of the time I think it's probably most of the time in losers, but a couple times I did qualify out in winners too.
Yeah,
So I wanted to just like this is likely the last one for
yeah,
Street Fighter
possibly, yeah.
5, so I wanted to go out like at least maintaining that baseline.
Nice, nice. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure you probably missed 2018 because I think you were there in 2017 when I think you were watching my match when I could have got out of pools too. Like I think I was in losers finals and
Ah, okay.
I lost to this Balrog player. I did like a stupid slide and then like I guess I just didn't think he was gonna punish it and he punished it and that was like the game winning kill.
Ah, I
Um,
get you.
so after that, yeah, so you got out of your pools and losers, and then I was looking at here. Then after that, you ended up playing Human Bomb. Who
Yeah.
where's he from again?
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
So
who's he play in five now?
Chun Li.
Oh, he
Uh,
still plays Chun Li. Okay.
so I have a huge story around that one too. So I admittedly haven't been playing very well over the past couple months. Just like I haven't been streaming much, I haven't been practicing much, and I was kind of in a rut in our locals too. I still kind of am in a rut with the locals. Like our locals have figured me out, and they're awesome players, and they've
Yeah.
grown so much over the past couple of years here. But I I I ended up talking with Alex Myers, who wanted Chun practice because he was playing the mirror against Kudo in and not in his pool, but he knew he was in his path essentially.
Okay.
And Alex Myers has a seed, so like he was expecting a qualify out, so he wanted to practice the mirror all the way up leading up to Evo. So
Yeah.
like I want to say in the past like 2 weeks or something, we played several first to fives over the like multiple days, and so he actually knocked me out of a lot of my funk, and like so like I wasn't prepping to play the mirror like he was. I was just trying to get good games and steal some of his shit because I get he was doing it on me, you know.
Yeah.
And so I felt much crispier, and I ended up playing really well in casuals and everything. But weirdly enough, I got matched up with Human Bomb, which he plays Chun as well. So all the practice that Alex Myers gave me was really helpful in that, or was supposed to be really helpful in that. And we actually like even played another first to five at Evo, and that was a blast catching up with him in person too. But yeah, then I ended up playing Human Bomb, and he just wrecked my shit. Like I didn't, I showed up the venue that at the venue that day like a couple hours in advance, prepped as much as I could. I played that first to fight with Alex, and then like Human Bomb just ran me over. I dropped a couple of big combos, but that's not why I lost. I lost because he just destroyed me in neutral and rushed me down, and it was kind of interesting because I actually asked Myers as well, like, you know, do you have any hints or anything to beat him? And like it's a tough one because Myers and Human Bomb are friends because they're both Sakura players from Street Fighter 4.
Yeah.
So like he didn't want to draw any battle lines, which I completely get, and I
Yeah.
that's a conundrum that I think about regularly too, which is like, you
Yeah.
know, um,
Yep.
it happened at a money match later that night with between one of the Yuma guys and one of the Phoenix guys, where like
Oh.
I really like the Yuma guys a lot, and so I didn't want to cheer against
Yep.
them per
Right.
se, but I also wanted my Phoenix guy to win too. So
Yeah. Yeah. I had that same thing happen in 2016 because that, you know, when I was at the convention center and I had that little I we shared that like I don't know, it's not a duplex, it's a whatever, that two floor little house thing that we were in. I actually set up the Alaska guys, the AKG versus Arizona, and like I
yeah,
didn't want to participate. I was just like, I'm not taking sides. Like, you know, these are my boys for forever. Like, you know, these are my new friends. Like, you know, I wasn't gonna choose sides. I wasn't gonna give anybody any help on either side. I was just
yeah,
there to enjoy the moment and like, you know, just happy to bring those people together. And like, yeah, yeah, it's definitely a pretty big conundrum to have, you know, amongst friends. Like, you know,
yeah,
especially like, you know, there's the competitive nature too, because you know you don't want to give somebody info and then the other person finds out and like, oh man, why'd you tell them how to beat me, or why'd you tell them this? And it's just like, oh man, like I don't want to get involved in all.
sure, yeah,
Yeah, so that's cool, man. Yeah,
uh,
so I think it overall you ended up, was it 129?
yeah, something like that.
At
Um,
129th.
I have a whole soapbox about tournament placings and, you know, like what that means relative to who's the best and what it means to be good, but I'll save that for a different time. I did get to play some Street Fighter 6 as well.
Nice.
I won't go. I'm sure we'll talk about that on a future podcast too. But my initial reactions were that it was slow. But
Yeah.
the real big thing is that every game feels slow when you first
Yeah.
get exposed to it. Like if you look at any fighting game that's come out in recent years, that's everyone's immediate criticism. It feels slow. Strive feels slow. Street Fighter
Yeah.
5 feels slow.
Yeah.
Samurai
Timeouts.
Showdown is slow. There's timeouts too because nobody knows what their combos are yet, and
Yeah, they
everyone's
don't
trying
know
to figure that out, right?
optimal damage. Yep.
Yep, and then everyone's getting used to the mechanics and stuff like that. And frankly, I'm on a convention center floor, and there's I
Yeah.
don't know what the TVs are like. I was playing on pad, you know.
Yeah.
The line was
That
always really long to get in and play that game.
definitely not ideal settings to learn in.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's nice to get that first
Uh,
that first shot of it.
to be clear though, Cross Tekken feels way slower than six. Like six is
Oh, really?
feels fast. Yeah, like faster than Cross. It's not. It feels slower than five, but I think that's artificial. But I think
Yeah.
it'll land, and I think it'll land somewhere between Cross Tekken and five, and then possibly even faster than five once we all know what we're doing.
Nice.
Chun Li felt good. She's got a the actually, you know, the big thing that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about yet is it's got the strive syndrome where the camera is so zoomed in that normals are half screen. They feel like they hit half screen
Oh,
because like with Exerd versus Strive, like the camera was way zoomed out and there was more like vertical space. but in
Yeah.
Strive it's so zoomed in that every like Ramlethal's swords will hit like half screen, right? And I got that same feeling from Street Fighter 6 where I did Chun-Li Stand Fierce and it hit half screen.
Hey, it's like
So
fighting Dawson
yeah, it's a weird thing where it's like what it's not necessarily that the normals are better, it's that the camera zoomed in.
Yeah.
And so I'm really, and you know, that might have to do with like that's the difference between 2D and 3D animation, right? Is like what with a 2D animation you can do squash and stretch, and so you can get away with doing a half screen normal and have a really zoomed out screen. But for 3D
Yeah.
models, the only way to make them hit half screen is to be hella zoomed in. And then you get all
Yeah.
the benefits of seeing like the detail on their faces and shit. So
Yeah.
it makes sense, and that's why Strive went through it, and I think that's why 6 is going that direction too.
Yeah. Yeah, because they did, they did see, or I did see screenshots or video of that briefly, like the physical damage on the characters. So I mean, that's maybe something that they're trying to emphasize, like you said.
Yeah. Yep. I'm
Oh,
sold on all
nice.
the reveals too. Like the art style
Yeah.
is going well. It's I'm starting to really buy into the art style. I think I don't think I like
Yeah.
Chun's design very much as far as like how she looks, but um, I think her dress is too shiny and her model doesn't seem done. But I
Yeah.
don't know if they'll fix that. And frankly, I don't care enough to that won't make me like not want to play the character. I think Chun is super complicated. That version of her very complicated because of all the stance stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the thing I'm looking forward to is like even though like that roster leak came out,
Hmm.
like I'm always a sucker for like trailer reveals, and like I had heard prior to Finals Day that I guess it got spoiled on, I think you said Reddit, and then like I saw on Twitter they were
Yeah,
like, hey, if you guys don't want to see what's coming, don't look at Capcom Germany or something like that.
yeah.
And so I stayed away from it, and then like just seeing the videos themselves, like I knew something was coming, and like I think at this point um, with the roster leak, everybody's kind of the same way. Like they know who's coming for in some sense. So
They don't
it's
know
just like
when, right?
yeah, they just don't know when. And then like of course, there's always the gameplay implementation and the move list or the move sets and stuff that you're gonna see. Like oh, what's this or
Yeah.
how does this work? So there's still that sense of surprise, and I look forward to those reveals wherever they're gonna be, whether it's gonna be tournaments, Capcom Cup, or
Yeah.
cons, or whatever, or just randomly, they might just start doing stuff towards the upcoming months.
I mean, I don't really like the concept art thing is really interesting to me because yeah, it spoils the like surprise of hey, they're bringing DJ back or something, right?
Yeah,
Or something. I don't. That's neither confirming nor denying that. But for the new characters, like okay, I see, I know what they look like, and that's kind of a teaser more than anything else. That's like the character select screen on an arcade when you go in and see it for the first time. We
yeah,
care more about well how the character moves and plays and what the
yep,
mechanics are and stuff like that. And that stuff is still in those reveals and it's still super hype. So
yeah, yeah, like the animations and stuff. Like yeah, because I mean, who did they reveal? Kimberly, and like yeah, I
mhm.
remember I was looking at it and I was like this. Um, I was just like, oh man, she looks really cool, and then my son was just like, oh, that's just Guy. And I just kind of started laughing because I was just like, oh, you're right, but
It's
you know,
interesting with Kimberly because she seems like a cross between Ibuki and Guy and Zeku, and
oh yeah,
it's
because she's got
like
like the bombs. Yeah, I saw the bomb,
yeah,
the
she's
spray
got
cans.
the spray cans are kunai, right?
Yeah,
And she also has like swan dive stuff and the tatsu the
Zuna
Fushin,
drop.
yeah, Azuna drops too. Like I think I think they heard the feedback from Five loud and clear that the characters didn't have a lot of depth to them, which I don't agree with, but I understand where people were coming from there. And
Yeah,
Kimberly looks too complicated for me. Like she looks awesome, and I think a lot of people are gonna go nuts over her and like really get
yeah,
to play her and really dig deep and like learn all the setups and stuff. But man, she's got so much. She's a combination of three different characters, right?
yeah,
Oh man,
yeah, yeah. I
what
mean,
did you
that's
think of
the.
Jury? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah, just you talk about complicated characters. It just
Yeah.
makes me think about like there's certain characters that I definitely know that aren't for me. Like especially like one example in five is like the biggest thing was like I remember seeing Manat and I was just like, oh, she looks awesome. And
Yeah.
then like the trailer, everything she was doing, I was like, this looks crazy. And then I went to go try doing trials and I was just like, this is too crazy. Like this isn't like mentally for me, like that's
Yeah.
not a character for me with all the like the holding and the negative edging and all this stuff. And I was just like, yeah, like my mind. it's too much.
Yeah, and like I'm in the same boat nowadays where I don't necessarily want a complicated character, but I also recognize that people want that stuff, and I don't
Yeah,
it does like every character doesn't have to be for me or for you, right? It
exactly,
can be for
exactly. Yeah.
that one person out there that really wants to do negative edge stuff.
Yeah, I
Um,
respect the hell out of people when I see those complicated combos and like they're using all six of the orbs and all this stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, that's beyond me, but it's still a hype to see and like to see somebody like execute that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like our buddy Jelani, like who's Rocknan, who is responsible for the logo that you see, as well as the our theme song.
Yeah,
You know, that character is literally like prescribed to him, I think.
yeah,
like she's got pretty much everything that he likes in a character, which is super sick, including the style and
yeah.
the just the general like vibe of the character.
Yeah.
Uh
Well, I mean, it's the other thing too, like talking about negative edge. I mean, or just holding down buttons, like you
yeah.
were just talking about Jury. That's one
Yeah.
of his characters too. That was one of his characters in five. I don't know if he played her in four too, but yeah. So I don't know. Maybe he'll have a character crisis. Maybe he'll play both of them. I don't know.
Yeah, Jury
But
seems really interesting because, yeah, she's an example of them making the character easier to play because she had all that negative edge shit, and it was too complicated for the vast majority of players, I think, and you didn't see much of her in Street Fighter 4. And then in
yeah,
Street Fighter 5, they tried something completely different, but everybody was upset that she wasn't like 4, so it was kind of a really awkward spot. But in this one, she looks extra straightforward, like extra
yeah,
beginner, because I think they recognize how popular she is. Um,
yeah.
like she's excuse me, the Fuhajins, the store. It
Yeah,
does.
the Star Fireballs.
Yeah, it looks like rather than having to, because in 4 you had to store them and you had to negative edge and then release them as needed, right? And then
Yep.
in 5 you had to store them and stock them and then you could use them, but
Yeah.
you couldn't negative edge it. And in this game, you can store them and all they do is really just tack, but you can still do the move without having a store. And so all the store does is just tack on additional damage or additional follow up, which is really interesting because that means she doesn't need the store, but she can get rewarded for it if she's like full screen or something. So it changes her from like a darting in and out character to potentially an up close character constantly,
Yeah.
like G rather than Nash.
Yeah.
But that's my conjecture. Who knows how she'll actually play? Who
Yeah.
knows? She looks easier though, and to the point where I would actually consider her playing her if she's harder. If Chun is too hard for me.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, overall, like, yeah. I mean, I'm hyped for the reveals and where that's gonna go.
Yeah. Were there any other announcements that you found interesting?
Um, what else was they showing? Oh, the Tekken thing. Yeah, right before that.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that was like a teaser for Tekken 8 or maybe Tekken Tag 3 with the transition to Kazuya's face. And then they were just like that was literally it. They showed Kazuya's face and like it's up close, upgraded upgraded view, and then it was just like cut, and then they were like the commentators in Harada, and then I thought maybe that he was gonna talk and they were gonna do something else, and then they were just like, nope, and then on something else on the Street Fighter, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
So
So I was in the arena at that time, and everybody wanted Tekken 8, right? And
yeah,
like
yeah,
without
because they
going,
announced a balance patch. That's basically what it was, right? They announced like a
yeah.
balance patch for
But even
seven.
then, that was pretty lukewarm for the spectators, or
Yeah,
for the arena. Again, that maybe that goes back to that whole like people are more interested in spectating than the actual players would be interested in the balance patch, but they weren't in the arena.
yeah,
So
to
I
see
think,
that.
yeah, by and large, everybody wanted a Tekken 8, and I've actually been in scenarios where, like I'm a software engineer by trade, and I've been in scenarios where like I know what the crowd wants, or I want to know what the audience in my meeting wants, and
Hmm.
I can't give that to them, and I have to give them the opposite and sell it, and that's
Yeah,
uh, kind of difficult at times, and so I can't imagine what it's like to be a game developer, like and like Harada being up there, being like, yeah, I know everybody wants Tekken 8, and I can't tell you that to you, and so I just have to show up to this arena with thousands of people and smile. And
yeah,
so like I feel for the developers when they know that the room is very clear on what they want, and you can't do anything about it. So I
yeah,
think they handled it as gracefully as possible with that stinger. saying like, hey, we can't say anything, but it's coming. Get ready.
Yeah, yeah, that and like they're really good about keeping stuff close to the chest too. Like you don't really hear anything like Tekken leaks and stuff like that.
It's all
So,
marketing stuff, man. It's
yeah,
like the marketing timeline is has millions of dollars. Maybe not millions. I don't want to guess at that too much, but there's a lot of money on the line of making sure that things are released in certain cadences to keep it in the global conversation, right? And that marketing is
yeah,
huge. So I would be surprised if Harada even had a say in that stuff. Like even as the
yeah,
producer, he might just hand it off to a marketing team and go, because it has to be. There's an American marketing arm, and there's probably a Japanese marketing arm, and Europe and
global one.
whatnot.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like it might be completely out of his hands.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I'm just like, I mean, other than that, the other announcements, what was the stuff at Evo? I think there was like the announced rollback for Dragon Ball.
Yeah, that's huge. That is
Yeah,
huge. Because
yeah,
like I don't think people understand that what makes Dragon Ball unique from a game development and publisher standpoint, where uh, Namco Bandai owns all the rights for Dragon Ball games, but they didn't.
okay.
But ArcSys developed it, right? So
Yeah,
at this point, ArcSys is working on Strive. They're working on DNF. They're still making and they're having updates for older games like Persona 4 Ultimax, right? So ArcSys isn't doing anything on Dragon Ball anymore, and so Namco has to find other people to do that stuff. And so
oh,
rollback,
okay.
yeah, so rollback, they're going through Code Mystics to do it. So it's not as simple as being like, oh, just have the development team from Dragon Ball Fighters just go and update the game and give us rollback. It's not that simple because that development team doesn't exist. That development team's it's ArcSys. They're
Yeah,
working on their own shit, which
doing
is
doing
making
the
them
other
more
stuff.
money. Yeah. So like Bandai Namco just contracted, like just had ArcSys to do all the development, but they handled all the publishing and the end of life support stuff. So they have to go and find somebody else to do that development. And frankly,
Yeah,
Capcom has that same relationship with Dimps, where Dimps
yeah,
developed Street Fighter 4 and developed Cross Tekken and Street Fighter 5. And so like it's not as simple as being like go fix the netcode for Street Fighter 5. You
yeah,
you got they got Dimps isn't going to take that work anymore. They're working on KOF
yeah.
or something right now.
Yeah, well, I guess it says something about Bandai Namco too, in terms of like the fact that they were even willing to go back and go do that, because like they could have just been left well enough alone, but it's just like, if
Yeah.
they're reaching out to another studio or another dev and saying, hey, we want to implement this for our fan base, then I think that says that's a positive thing for them and
Yeah.
for the community as a whole, because that's a whole nother discussion in itself in terms of rollback, and especially with everybody being online nowadays. It's almost like if your game doesn't even have rollback from the start, like there's a segment of the community that's not even gonna like entertain it at all. It's just like, well, I can't play this, because I was actually looking at um, um, different games that were being on sale on Steam, Evo weekend or whatever, right? And I was
Yeah, a
looking
lot
at
of them
Samurai
were.
Showdown. Yeah, Samurai
Yeah.
Showdown.
Which also
Uh,
got rollback.
yeah,
That
that's
that
getting
got announced,
rollback.
yeah.
And then I was looking at Grand Blue, and like I saw Grand Blue, and like if you look at the reviews, like I was just looking to see what people were saying. It's just like great game, but no rollback. How do you expect me to play online? No rollback. This
Yeah.
is impossible. Please fix this or whatever. And I'm just like, that's a huge thing now. So hopefully that's something that devs are looking at, and um, rollback's a big thing, and then another issue altogether is like the input lag for games. That's something that seems to be hopefully on the minds of on devs too, because
Yeah.
that's a big thing competitively.
It's a tough one because if you think about it from a publisher standpoint, right? Like, what is the actual competitive community like percentage wise, like of the total market share, right? And like Street Fighter 5, I think sold probably close to 5 million units or something. I actually gotta look at that exact number, but there were definitely not 5 million people entered in that tournament, right? The
Exactly.
people that
Yeah.
were,
Yeah.
and there's not definitely not 5 million people playing it right now.
Yeah.
So it's a very very small amount of people to cater to, but I think the voices were loud enough over the past 2 years, and the pandemic really like jump started this online push for rollback. And
Yeah.
in some cases, like so I don't think, for one, I wouldn't put any energy into fixing Street Fighter V's netcode at this point. I would
Yeah.
just put it
Exactly.
all towards six, right? And then
Yeah.
for Dragon Ball, it's a really unique case where That is the versus game right now. We're not getting Marvel versus Capcom again in the near future. I don't think we are. Like
Yeah,
MVCI flopped, and then that's tied up in all the rights issues with Disney and stuff. And
yeah,
what I think Namco is doing is saying like, hey, we have the Dragon Ball license. We need to ride this out, and we don't like Arxis isn't going to make a sequel for us. That's the other thing is everyone's like, what about DBFZ2? Who's going to develop that? Is Arxis
yeah,
going to develop that? Because they're busy with Strive. They may have even like Namco may have even gone to them and proposed that, and like for all we know, they turned them down because you
yeah.
know who's going to work on what? Like they might want to have more control over the property. So like we might not get another Dragon Ball Fighters. That this might be it because of those weird business relationships. And so like make this one the right one. And like what would we add in the sequel anyway?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's yeah. I'm not a big into the whole Dragon Ball series too. Like, so every time they're
I'm a
like
huge Dragon Ball fan. I think
every
that's
time they announce like yeah.
yes. Yeah, you don't know who they are, right?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, Goku. There's like, how many Gokus are there? Like, what?
Yeah. No, I think it's that game is brilliant. I don't like playing it as much as I like playing Street Fighter Five, but I would play that game if I had the time. And that's more sounds more like an excuse. It's more like I only choose to play one fighting game
Yeah,
competitively,
no, I
and
mean,
I
it's
like
just like,
playing games casually. Yeah, and
yeah,
I actually will give Dragon Ball another shot if it has rollback, because then I can just play that with some friends. That's
yeah.
super cool.
Yeah, I mean, even for somebody like me, that, like I said, that's not into Dragon Ball, like just looking at that game, you could tell it's kind of like a labor of love in terms of like what they did,
Hmm.
because like it looks like the show, the characters, all that stuff, like everything, you know, it just has a really like great vibe about it, I guess. Like it's not something that I personally care to play. My son loves it. Like he was never into Dragon Ball at all, but like he loves the game, so it's one of those things. Like I think it comes off well.
It's a versus game that's balanced for a modern audience, which I think is a really fine balance to strike, because versus games are known for being cheap as fuck, like
Yeah,
being
yeah,
really really broken and stuff. But Dragon Ball is really balanced and has clearly has like developer support and balance patches over the years to really fine tune it. And so you just get this really like crystallized version of a versus experience, which some people want the broken shit and they're going to go elsewhere for that.
yeah,
But for like everything has a counter in that game. Everything's reactable, and so it rewards
yeah,
good defense. Like that game, I think, is just a really sound competitive game. I think there's been some balance changes
yeah,
that piss people off recently, but
yeah.
like I have a friend who just goes on a huge tangent anytime we talk about Super Dash and about how it's basically a jump in and stuff. Like the game is just it's very well put together, I think, from a competitive standpoint as well as from an overall package. So I'm really glad to see that its longevity will be extended.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean that's great. And then like I mean, I just think about like all the Dragon Ball games in the past. Like they, I think there's
Oh yeah,
some
they're not
here and
really.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's some where people are just like, oh, this is cool, but like
yeah,
they weren't great by any sense. And then this
yeah.
comes out, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh man, this is what I've been looking for.
Like the American audience has familiarity with Budokai, right? And because that was
Yeah,
our first big fighting game exposed to US. Like yeah, there was that other one on PlayStation that nobody gives a shit about, but
yeah,
Budokai wasn't actually a very good game. Or a good fighting game. It was just a
yeah,
fun game for us to fantasize about turning into Super Saiyan 3 and charging up ki and stuff like that, right? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but yeah, this one looks like yeah, visually it's visually really really great. Like I love watching it. I don't yeah, I don't understand everything that's going on, but it's something that I definitely do love watching.
Sure, yeah. But yeah, that was kind of my overall Evo tournament experience. I did a shout outs to a couple of the different restaurants we went to. Like we got to eat at Din Tai Fung, which was on a bucket
Yeah,
list for me. Din Tai Fung is a soup dumpling specialty place. Xiao
yeah,
Long Bao. Um,
yeah. I was actually just there recently when I went to Vegas, or not to
yeah,
Vegas. Was it Vegas? Yeah, it was Vegas. Yeah,
or
when we
California.
were
Okay,
when we were in Vegas. Yeah, me and
nice at the
Mary went there.
Aria, right? Yeah, it was
Yeah,
super
all right.
good. We also got to try this steakhouse called Cleaver, which was really good. Um, I got a I got a steak cleaver style, so it was like a fillet, but then it also had like blue cheese crusting, pork belly, and an egg on top, and
Oh,
and
that's what
and,
that
and a
was.
spiced rub. It was so fucking good, so good.
Dang.
And then
What was that last place you went to? Was it Onagai?
oh yeah, yeah, and then so we also yeah there's a Chinatown offshoot called Shanghai Plaza, and
Okay.
there's just a bunch of like really good restaurants. There's like a Korean corn dog place. There's a KFC or Korean fried chicken place, and then we found an onigiri place, but it's called onigiri, and it's like
Oh,
a
okay.
it's more like a sandwich than it is an actual onigiri.
Yeah.
Onigiri is a rice ball from Okinawa, but then what they did instead is they made like a hand wrap, sushi hand wrap, and they put an egg and spam and then whatever meat filling you wanted into it. I got a
Yeah.
katsu curry one, $8, eight
Oh, eight
dollars for
dollars.
that sandwich. Yeah, and
See, I'm gonna have to tell my family about that because they're in
I
Vegas. Like,
I paid the same amount for that fucking godlike sandwich that I did for a water bottle at the at the venue. It was crazy.
yeah, that's
Um,
that's awesome. Yeah, I never heard about that place. That's definitely
Shanghai
gonna
Plaza,
be
highly
interesting.
recommended. Yeah, it's a go to every time. There's an ice cream shop that my fiance adores called Somi Somi, and they do
Okay.
taiyaki. They do like those, those fish with the custard
Yeah.
inside or the red bean or whatever. They do taiyaki, and then they put that on top of the ice cream.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and they put like, matcha powder and stuff on it, and they make it all Asian and stuff, but like it's so good. It's so good. And I get taiyaki. I don't do ice cream very well, and so I get the
Yeah.
taiyaki instead. And I just have like a box of like, little fish in my hotel and munch on them throughout the weekend. It's really good.
Nice, nice. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a spot that I tell my sister about, or we go to next time we're in Vegas. So
Yeah, and if we
yeah.
go if we go to Evo together at some point, like I will totally meet you there and we'll just down a ton of food.
Nice. Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. This I think for our first was it with the drinks episode.
yeah, first mini episode, we had a minor hiccup, but other than that, like I think this was a good time, and maybe we'll do more of these and keep spitting out more content for y'all. But I think next, so actually, it's not even next week's show. It's going to be this coming Thursday. We're going to still talk about Evo, but we're going to talk about it from a different perspective. Do you want to talk about who we're having on, Benny?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. We're going to be talking to again Scott Saber AZ, OG in the scene for Arizona and the fighting game community as a whole. I'm gonna talk to him and about his recent Evo experience because he hasn't. I don't remember the last time he was back, but he'll give us clarity on that
Years.
and just on his experience with the new Evo, and then he was involved in like the old man games. So we'll see what his thoughts on like I think it was Vortex Gallery was what it was called
Yeah,
for
they ran all
like
the casual
too.
tournaments. Yeah, so there's a
Yeah, for
whole
all the
other
stuff
side of
on the side.
Evo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we'll get his perspective on that, which will be really good because I'm interested in that too because that's something I think even with Street Fighter Six, potentially being at the next Evo, I'm kind of interested in kind of playing some of those old games. So definitely want to see what he has to say about that.
yeah. I think he's probably our most requested guest ever since we launched this podcast, and
Yeah.
we we all know Scott. He's got millions and millions of lines of stories or words worth of stories. Rather, I've been drinking too much. He's got so many stories, and so this will be the first of many. I think the conversations that we have with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that, and like, yeah, no, there's definitely he's got his own Evo moment where I think a lot of people know him from too, which I don't know if we'll delve too much into that, but
Oh, I
um,
gave him shit when I saw him at Evo for that because I was like, I had Jess with us at the time, my fiance, and I said, "Hey Jess, this is the guy from the JM Cross YouTube video," and he was just like, "Oh my god, I'm never gonna live that down." It's so funny. So I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that on the podcast for sure.
nice, nice. Was there anything else that you wanted to say before we close things out?
No, I'm good. I'm very happy that I got to talk a little bit about my Evo experience, and I loved hearing about your GameOn experience. So if you guys liked this mini format, let us know, and we'll definitely make some more. So,
Absolutely, man. Yeah, good talking to you.
cool. Take care, and y'all have a good night.